All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the APSDA webinar series, Renewable and Sustainable Materials. Before we begin, just a few quick announcements. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A box and we'll address them during the Q&A session. And do stay tuned until the end of webinar as we'll be sharing the link for the certificate of participation. Kindly note that the link will only be accessible for 1 week after the webinar. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator for today's session, interior designer Carla Leonor. A brief background of Miss Carla. She is the co-founder of Bughaw Creative Collective and the division chief of the Design Center of the Philippines. With a multidisciplinary approach, she bridges design, innovation, and entrepreneurship. As a licensed interior designer and design services division chief at Design Center of the Philippines, she champions human-centered products and built environments. Her work's impact extends to her roles at the Philippine Institute of Interior Designers, or PIID, and her practice at Signature Spaces, where she fosters global collaboration and creates spaces that reflect Filipino values. Her Filipino values driven approach guides impact oriented brands towards global success through experienced design strategies. Additionally, Ms. Carla's Createch startup, Bughaw Creative Collective, empowers Philippine creative enterprises with data driven innovation for sustainable growth. It is our pleasure to have her guide us through this session. Miss Carla, over to you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the APSDA webinar series, Renewable and Sustainable Materials. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Again, my name is interior designer Carla Leonor, and I'll be your moderator for this session. We are thrilled to have two incredible experts with us today, architect Yatin Pandya and Miss Nagawati Surya, or more comfortably known as Miss Hannah. We will explore this crucial topic, renewable and sustainable materials, because they're not just buzzwords, they're a cornerstone of the future of architecture and interior design, and it shapes how we create more responsible and innovative spaces. Now, to kick off today's session, it's my honor to welcome Professor Keith Ong, the President of Asia Pacific Space Designers Association, to deliver the opening remarks. Professor Ong is a design practitioner, an industry leader, as well as a university professor. He is also the immediate past president for the Society of Interior Designers Singapore and have headed the society for 7 years. Professor Keith Ong, thank you for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Appreciate my dear friend Carla for the kind introduction. Thank you everyone for taking the time to attend our APSDA webinar series organized by our Professional Practice Department. APSDA is the acronym for Asia Pacific Space Designers Association, established since 1987. We are the gathering of national level design associations from Asia, including the Oceania region. Currently, we represent 15 different countries and territories, and they are Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam from the Southeast Asia, India and Nepal from the South Asia, Japan, South Korea, China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan from East Asia, and Australia from the Oceania. APSDA inspires to nurture a better understanding of the different Asia-Pacific regional cultures and encourage the exchange of interior design information and knowledge between its members for the advancement of this field to benefit regional societies at large. Under APSDA, we have various departments from professional development, education, awards and competitions, editorial and outreach, membership, and industry relations to develop and oversee the programs under the organization. Some of the important programs and initiatives APSDA is undertaking right now includes the APSDA Awards, which focus on the excellence in ID projects and personalities, which will open for submissions early next year, as well as the APID-AP, which stands for Asia Pacific Interior Designers Accreditation Program, which mission is to improve and increase the competency of the ID practitioners in the region. The letter is already open for application. Information can be found in our official website, apsda.org. Focusing back to the webinar series, we hope to cover major pillars that are of great importance today over the next 1 year, like sustainability, technology, as well as culture. Today, we put the spotlight on the interesting topic of renewable and sustainable materials. As the regional body in the Asia Pacific, one of the advantages we have is our access to the massive pool of talents over a wide area of subject matters. That's why we are fortunate to have two of the most prominent figures on the topic. Our distinguished speakers, Mr. Yatin Pandya from India and Miss Hannah Surya from Indonesia. We are also thrilled to have IDR Carla Leonor from the Philippines to moderate today's webinar. Also, I would like to thank the organizing team behind the webinar possible. Last but not least, allow me to borrow the words from one of my favorite musicians, Billy Joel. Quote unquote, I am, as I said, merely competent, but in an age of incompetence, that makes me extraordinary. With this, I thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you, Professor Keith Ong. I love the reference on Billy Joel. Thank you for your opening remarks and for setting the tone for today's session. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker of the session, architect Yatin Pandya, a highly respected author, academician, researcher, as well as a practicing architect with over 40 years of experience. Architect Yatin is also the founder of Footprints E.A.R.T.H for the Environment Architecture Research Technology Housing, a professional service organization that's involved in environmental studies, architectural design, indigenous research, alternative technology, and affordable housing. Architect Yatin has received over 40 national and international awards for his work and authored nearly 300 articles, contributing to more than 30 architecture documentaries. As a visiting faculty member at CEPT University for 34 years, he has also lectured in over 20 countries. His key principles of work are environmental sustainability, sociocultural appropriateness, timeless aesthetics, and economic affordability. Today, he will be sharing his insights on resurrecting the resource, recycling waste as built components. Architect Yatin, the floor is yours.
Very good afternoon. Namaskar, as we say here. Thank you so much for having me here in this international forum. It's both humbling and honoring experience to be part of this, to share a point of view. Let me begin my points of views with a slide. They are more prettier than my face here. Let me go to my presentation right away. I hope you're able to see my first slide. So basically, as designer, although we have been basically directly in connect with the client, but I think our responsibility is much larger, that we need to be appropriate to the context, which is place, people, and even planet, the environmental concerns. And the goal has always been to create humane, sustainable, and timeless built environment. Now, that being the challenge, how do we basically have been dealing today? And I feel that Corona, in some sense, gave a different paradigm shift to the kind of thinking. We understood the values of human being as a subservient to nature, which earlier we were trying to conquer. And therefore, I just say that rather than BC and AD as our historic reference for the time frame, maybe it's not a bad idea to start with BC and AC, before Corona and after Corona. Basically, it has taught us the values, humane values, plurality, humility, sustainability, etc. And also the very fundamental that any human existence is basically a sustainable sort of symbiosis between human to human and human to nature. So any development, if we keep these two, symbiosis in mind, I'm sure it will be always sustainable and harmonious. It also gave us hope, especially in India, where we thought that air was polluted, and a lot of other issues. And just few months of undue system kept out of the way, and the nature could correct itself. And that's where I think this paradigm shift, under which we could look at what are the design decisions by which we are able to help the kind of fractured planet to nourish and repair itself. We understood the value of nature over technology and outdoors over indoors. Especially in India, we were, as a developing country, trying to go out into this mode of smart cities. But if this was the kind of image to what we call smart, it laid a lot of questions, it being vision or it being a slogan. How did we continue to build all over the world? These are the images from as many diverse parts of the world, and they look just the same. But if I put the name, it could be from anywhere to anywhere and just about the similar outcome. And back home in India, as diverse a kind of climatic, cultural, and the environmental context and outcome or the result is just the same. Is this the idea of the kind of the goal that we are trying to achieve, to repair and to kind of be sympathetic to the planet, the place, and the people? The vernacular architecture that we see from any place, even if we don't know the specific place, I think their outcome, the resolution itself indicates to the choice of material or the material palette, that with the technology, the cultural, and as importantly, the environmental connotation of the given context. And that's why, at least, I raised this question for India, and maybe it will apply to many other places. Both of these happen to be a southern region called Kerala. Which Kerala is right for us? Which Jaipur is appropriate? And which Kolkata should we be promoting or looking towards to build? There has been a difference between image and identity. And I think this slide is also what we learned out of the Corona time, that what we see on a screen versus what we feel comfortable with. Image is what we want like others to see us as against identity is actually who we are, our own DNA. And that's where I think the previous slides were in the race of that image. For the context as historic or traditional as India, and I'm sure in Asia we share the similar kind of dimension, that there is a kind of a difference between these terms, history and tradition. You know, each of our culture have been there for centuries, if not millennia. We in India boast of even 4,000 years history of accumulated wisdom. So history is a dead tradition, while tradition is a living history. When something becomes obsolete for the change, time, and circumstance, it dies its own death, and that is the forgotten past or the fossilized yesterday. As against something that comes from yesterday but continues to be part of us today, that itself is a proof of those values being shared even today. So that is the idea, that even though it comes from past, it's still relevant, and therefore it is as much contemporary. And that's where in India we see this overlapping time overlay of three time zones. We see the moorings of the past and aspiration for tomorrow coexist. For example, there's a very archaic mode of advertising with camel cart going on the sixth largest 7+ million population city of Ahmedabad. But what it is trying to advertise is that be a global citizen. Australia is calling for higher education. So these are not contradictions, but what works for the given time. And therefore, my tongue twisting definition of design is that design is not about finding one answer to one question. It is about asking many questions, finding many answers to each of these questions, and then picking one answer that answers most to all questions. So it's about discretion and adding values. There's nothing like good, bad, ugly. It's always like doctor, appropriate or inappropriate. Like doctor, the very basic role of him is to diagnose and then decide and then diagnose with the treatment how it would cure. So same is the liability of ours, that what is appropriate to the place, people, and planet. Therefore, holistic design must answer or have included these six parameters of design. Timeless aesthetics because the spaces are going to last longer than us, sociocultural appropriateness because it is always for others' lifestyle, environmental sustainability because our design decisions have long repercussions, positive or negative, functional efficiency because it's for this utility we have been asked to design, economic affordability without which it won't be viable, and structural stability because if the spaces are to last long, so should be its strength and stability. As we see that built industry is responsible for very high proportion of energy consumption, resource consumption, as well as even the pollutants. And it is there we need to understand, and today's emphasis on the choice of material and its implications. A simple thing that if there is also life cycle costs, embodied energy costs. We only look at the cost on the shelf of the market, what we pay, but these are the hidden ones which affect the environment. And therefore, in design decision, if we are aware about the choices that we make, just a simple comparison that if a sun-dried soil block was 1 unit, by burning and making a brick, we do duplicating the energy consumption. The energy costs are 10 times for cement, 30 times for steel, 120 times for PVC, and 160 times for aluminum. So imagine, there is one popular reference to use. If one aluminum Coca-Cola can, if recycled rather than thrown, can save energy equivalent of running television for 20 minutes. So imagine the amount of energy that it takes to have these aluminum paneling, etc. And there's always been locally a lot of innovations and jugaad, as we call it in India, done to recycle the material for much effective second applications. And it is in that light I'm trying to share this presentation. Sustainability has a lot of these connotations about first refuse if you don't need to do more, reduce, recycle, reuse, restore, and regenerate. So in that light, if I say first reuse, even the whole structures are the material or the products to reuse. Both Old City and many parts, like this is design of a 70-year-old and the structure designed by Mr. Lee Corbusier, and it was dilapidated, abused for all kinds of things. We restored it and put it into a sympathetic use, and today it was one of the only and first city museum of city of Ahmedabad, and it's been kind of its life has been prolonged, and it's become a beautiful museum with even cultural continuum of the city and the people. So the reuse is one idea of the structures themselves. In that sense, many of these resources would come. And as an interior designer, we do adaptive reuse where we save a lot of resource and still make it part of the contemporary consumption. So these were a few images of the City Museum. You're welcome to Ahmedabad and enjoy that. There's another similar idea that, in Gandhi Ashram, Mr. Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, and he had emphasized on this practice to abolish the scavenging after your waste. And then he said, if you can invest in technologies where people don't have to engage, because those people who engage in cleaning behind you, we were terming them as untouchable. So that social thing he attributed to the very root cause of not being able to or having to scavenge. And that's where some of these kind of techniques were done. But now that became kind of as a place, the demonstration became defunct because all of these have come into the main circuit. And therefore, we turned it into a public space where these things are the hieroglyphics. And this has been the seat to look at the documentaries and social gathering and recycling the waste from the washrooms. We even created a restaurant, which is kind of toilet cafe, to change that mindset that whenever we say toilet, the reflex is to shut the nose. But that is exactly what has created this social divide. So it is just to kind of give a little positive frame of mind. Mr. Gandhi used to say that in the start of the day, I get the best of my, thoughts from the morning start in this area. So it should be clean. So just through design, also being able to change the mindset and again, recycling the waste from this. This was the museum part. This is the idea that both refuse and recycle kind of one. That this is in industrial chawls or industrial slums where there are deep, long houses with three sides shared with the neighbor. So, and no white light ventilation available from the side. So last rooms are invariably pitch dark and they don't have light view ventilation over there. So we held the NGOs who were trying to deal with some of these issues, and we tried to use this recycle water bottle. Nobody gives you even 5 cents for these, even though high tradition of recycling in India. But if you just put it in the roof with internal reflection, it will glow like a bulb, and you would have saved electricity undue during daytime. But this would not give ventilation. So then we kind of created this dormer sort of a skylight, which now has an opening so hot air can escape out. And it's a ferro kind of a translucent material with even organic leaf material, etc., which the local community centers can create, and was affordable at the same price they would have put the other sheet. And now you can see there is a whole difference. There was 1 year post installation study done, and the quality of life changed. That minimum of 250 rupee a month saving for each house due to less electricity burned during daytime, and minimum of 1500 rupee increase in the daily production because of the kind of extended hours with less stress on eye, health index improved. Children had no excuse not to do the homework because now there were sufficient light indoors and they could use this. There was in 70s, there was this attempt of Vobo, World Bottle, where Heineken beer came up with the design of the bottle itself from the beginning, that instead of round shape, it came up with almost square shape with serration on two sides. So once you go high with spirits, when it's thrown, it could become a good brick material to make the mall, and the serration would help to have mortar in place. So ideas that we used for one of the centers, the activity community center in the slum of one of the largest slum of Ahmedabad. What we did for this community center, here again using the Gandhi's principle that whenever you are in doubt of what solution would be the right solution, think of the most downtrodden person that you have known and see which approach would benefit him the most, and that would be the most appropriate approach to take up. So here, this settlement, actually the girls and women folk, so it's a fair gender that actually is the breadwinner, because they go around early morning, pick up all the rags that come out from domestic and municipal sector and recycle them. And through that, they earn their livelihood. So in the middle of the largest quarter settlements, this poor settlement, we, with the help of NGO, put up this community center. And what we did was that, Ahmedabad city alone every day produces 3,200 metric ton of waste every day. And all that it is doing is to dump it into one kind of an area. And it has started becoming a big mound of the waste. We don't have any geographic feature like a hill in the city, but because of this tendency, we have a 70-feet mound already created. Now they're trying to remove that. So what we did was, from municipal segment and from the domestic waste, actually we had a 3-year intense research on the dynamics of waste coming out, who collects, at what price sells to which many cycles, and eventually what happens to that. So we used the one which were least effectively reproduced and turned it empirically with certain tests and all that to the convincing level of the building components. Being architect, and also there were triple intentions here, that otherwise that would be thrown and it would be a polluting waste. So if we recycle, you are saving on pollution. Then by value added processes, even the old ladies, widows of the settlement got some employment in not doing menial job, but simply like filling up the bottle with inert material, which they can do sitting at home, and they earned some livelihood. So it was also gender empowerment and economic empowerment for local people. And what we produced was better aesthetically and more importantly, strength-wise than the alternative material at the same cost they were using. So it also improved their housing. So triple advantage of pollution, of economic gain, as well as the stronger houses. So one simple thing was that, this thin illegally created micron 150 less micron bag, they are just thrown and they actually choke the drain, and there are a lot of other problems. So if you just braid them, they become a rope with much higher value addition, and people even buy this rope as a bought product for other things. Other ways that came from the systems was the fly ash. We have a thermal power station, and you can see that how far from this bundle on the left, you see, as many pipes have to pump the ash that gets deposited into three-story dug ground, a pit where the water would leach and it would become a pond of the ash. That is how it has been disposed. Turning that with some binders like cement, very few percentage of that, it became cheaper than the brick and stronger than the brick and less pervious than the brick, kind of a building block. And for 18 years, there's been no problem with that, kept exposed. So this was one of the things that came out of that fly ash. And as applied, we got also a chance to demonstrate that into that community center in a slum. Then soil with 5% cement, it became as strong as the brick, and that could be another option. And these are they have been documented that what kind of ingredients that went in, what was the cost, and as you can see, even if it's crushing strength, etc. And this was from the inert material from that mountain of the waste, we could take that as a sample and added some additives, and it became one-fifth the cost of the conventional brick at that point in time. So even within the economic bracket, we could come up with a better solution and also solve the problem of the pollutants, which are simply being wasted or dumped. So wood is very expensive in our part of the world, but crate wood being brittle, it only gets burnt. So all the packaging material like that. So we tried to take the help of a local carpenter and turned it with the, you don't, it would chip off because you nail directly onto that. But if you do the beading, then it would stay like a glass. We never nail the glass, we all do beading. So that's how this technique. So material is always a half statement. Material always goes with appropriate technique. And here with that, you could see it has become a nice wooden partition, which otherwise is a luxury for big houses. Similarly, plastic, the PET bottles, as I said, nobody gives you so much, even though recycling tradition to some of these waste, which has become very common. And even if you recycle, it would have toxic gases if you burn it. And afterwards, what you get is a black kind of a cake, which again needs a lot of processes to do something. And as you can see, 1,500 bottles every second get thrown in USA, and our countries are catching up with that. So what we did was to actually have the widows unemployed from the settlement simply with a thumb pressure to fill in with the inert material in that, and with simple mortar, this would become a brick in the wall. And this has stayed for 18 years. And what is worth nothing has become equivalent of 2.5 rupee brick each bottle. Similarly, we are in a dry state, but this glass waste is sent far off, about 800 kilometers from here to get melted, etc. So rather than that, some of these liquor and acid bottles, we again put it like a brick, on a west side. So again, the design and the understanding has to be there. It's not just putting anything anywhere. For example, west side, the sun is so low that big amount of overhang would not do the job. And in India, southwest is also prevailing direction for wind, but it's a very warm direction for sun. So, but something like this, as you can see, glows very well. This is the library and an exhibition area in the school, and it shuts out or removes the glare from the sun, and yet allows for the breeze to come in, as there are also holes kept in and like that. So it's very appropriate solution. And once again, this kinds of things get recycled for a much better use, and it looks very nice. So it's not only in the slum, we have also tried to apply that in some of the rich person's farmhouses. Similarly, the kind of a below neutral zone where the compressive strength is more important and not tensile, and therefore to remove the below neutral, the tensile is more important than the compression, and therefore, rather than concrete, you could use any of this inert material. And we tried using the clay bowls that they used to produce in the neighboring house, as well as, again, a local kind of material next door only. And then also the digital waste. And once you cast from the lower part on the ceiling is how you see on the right. And this was the ceiling of a crash. So when a young toddler is sleeping on the floor, he looks up and he gets this very attentive and very catching sort of a ceiling to look at. So this is just the process, and right inside is the product. And this glass through and through would also bring in some light inside. So these are also some applications, and even the digital waste as well as the clay material. And you can see the crash where also when both parents go out for labor, who looks after the toddlers? So then the local nannies take that role and they look after the kids. This is rag sandwiched, the old cloth. They have been also put to instead of glass wool, they have been reinforcing the fiber cement. So these are the panels created, and they become nice roofing material. They become nice paneling material, like Cadbury wrappers, or not some of these packaging material. They're not neither paper nor plastic, so they don't dissolve and they just lie all around, and nobody gives you any money for that recycling. So shavings of that, we made this translucent paneling for the doors, which brings in some light but not the glare. Similarly, oil tin container, our cooking has a lot of oil, and that was used as a ventilator, as a louvers, as well as paneling material with the crate frame. Similarly, any scrap material, here we got a lot of cycle parts, and we created sitting on a site for 4 days with a local welder, and created this interactive door, and this is for the crash. So children also have some sound out of the chime, and this is also moving part. So it's just using the scrap and using your ingenuity to design and also solve the purpose for which it is there. Similarly, the digital waste, you can see 3 wastes here. Apart from that, there is a glass bottle, and there is also a kind of this is also metal scrap. These are oil tin container doors, paneling, windows, scrap. And this is digital waste for the door paneling, CDs. If somebody invents how to decode this, maybe you get a lot of information here. So again, idea on one hand, the local clay products for insulation, as well as to remove the cement as much, as well as the digital waste, which now is a big issue. Similarly, the ceramic industries waste, these bathroom tiles, which were used to make this block, which we locally tried, and it was cheaper as well as better looking. And if this is put on the rooftop, it would become more performing because of the clay material. So insulation, more durable for wear and tear, as well as the kind of cheaper than the other option. Even the waste from another building site where they demolish becomes a resource here. These are all from some demolished site which we have to pay money to offload. So here we got it free by taking it from there and putting it as whatever was available, its combination. So I won't talk about design in isolation, but if I needed one more black piece, it was not available. So based on what was available, we tried to create this interactive pattern for the crash floor. And that is how this has been one example of a metal, of the digital waste, as well as the second and material waste, etc., as applied since 18 years into this settlement. And this have been also multiply used. This is a community center. So morning, it's a school for the young children, the classes. Even here, the truss that you see, these are old electrical conduits which used to come in metal. Now you get it in plastic. So it has lighter weight than the even steel girder. So even if it's cheaper, And then it also uses the small pieces of the electrical conduits that you can find from a junkyard. So it has been, again, engineering wise, kind of experimented and put in there. So it's much lighter in weight, lower in cost, and also uses the waste materials. So some of these are the pictures. So as I was saying, that morning, it's a classroom for young children. Afternoon, it's a center for vocational training for the young girls of the settlement to make them literate in digital era so that their employability is higher. So afternoon, it's a vocational training, and weekends and the evenings, it's a community place. So even the place is recycled over time. That was the recycling waste material. Then other the traditional techniques, and it still becomes relevant with the slight innovation. So this is another larger campus, institutional campus that we designed. And here you can see that it's brick, more, and load-bearing brick with cavity wall construction. So you have like insulation. Then there was whole idea of earth burning, even soil, topsoil is always very precious. And also, often when we go out into the suburb, the roads are higher than the plot. So typical tendency is to get hundreds of trucks bringing the, soil from somewhere. So it uses energy. It creates problem for some another place from where it has been brought. And then dumping here means labor and the energy. So we took a pledge that cut and fill, not even a fistful of soil was got from anywhere or even put anywhere. So this was a local management of soil, but because of that we got earth burning in a hot dry climate. There were these spaces created for intern that 2.2 million liter water has been harvested here. So even that water is also, natural elements are also important resources we will need nowadays. Maybe there's going to be a war on water. It already started in southern states of India. So these are the kind of resources that have been not only conserved, but in some case generated. This was from a barren site that we created these spaces out of earth burning and the cutting and filling, and all this landscape has been recreated, including local craft. You can see here, these are all mud, mirror, the vernacular architecture elements and the craftsmanship and the skill. As I said, material goes with the technique, and it creates still one of the most beautiful interiors, so to say. So there are a number of things using local material, even for flooring, paving. This is a recycle on the left-hand side of the cottage. That one is a recycled material from ship. When the ship is broken, we have a shipbreaking yard very close to us. And from there, the deck material, which is more waterproof, so has been put here. And all these, ecology has been created. So even natural resource. And final, this is one of the 18 villages we did after the earthquake, very severe earthquake in 2001, where people had self-esteem and they created their own habitat with local material, which is mud and the thatch. And you can see their architecture or spaces reflect or intertwine craft, art, culture, and architecture. And what they created was even kind of in the strength of the earthquake they withstood. I won't get into the details, but you can see the new techniques and material that they did not get familiar with all broke. What is the traditional one, even though mud and the thatch withstood. So we used the local skill. They were building their own houses. 10 youth created 3,000 blocks a day. And the kind of they were building their own house, a participatory process. They knew how to do this with that technique. They would do the best they can. Youngest of the family learned from the wisdom of the oldest. And you can see this 12-year-old boy knows how to do this traditional one, which there are no training classes. So only through this oral tradition, if these houses were not built, maybe the new generation would not have learned to continue this. And just in 2 months, with one-fifth the government stipulated cost, 75 rupees, less than $1 today, a square foot, is how these beautiful houses with lovely interiors have come about. And it reflects their culture, environmental management in a harsh 52 degrees Celsius outdoor desert climate with blizzards, while this keeps it at least to 32 or so. And you can see with mud and mirror, white clay and mirror, it reflects maximum the light. Some intermediate technology to see the smoke out were used, including solar panel. And from where the soil was dredged locally, it with clay strata within the desert, only 3 inch of rainfall became a reservoir. And with reservoir in a desert, the cultivation started, the agriculture started. So the whole ecology changed. The culture flourishes with water. The both the earlier example of this industrial chawl, as well as this, we won the United Nations Habitat Citation. And you can see tradition and modernity was not a contrast that could continue, and they live with their lifestyle. And now, in fact, tourists also go there in their own environment. And this one is a memorial that we have done. The reason I'm showing this is, if you have time, I run 2-minute video. If not, I'll close. Was that only 5 natural elements? So when we say material, even natural material are also the resource. Rather than overbuild, can we not create spaces with land, water, vegetation, sun, and plantation? But this is a memorial and only uses the natural material to create this space, which is engaging and which is for an industrial kind of owner who died. And this is what has been created. These are real drone images, not the simulation. And everything is about land, water, vegetation, and life. So the cultural connotation, so it's also engaging. As I say, the space has to inform, involve, and inspire. So that is how all these, again, they also create the ecology. There are 120 plant species, and yet in hot climate, it creates not only microclimate, but space for shelter, etc. I'll stop after this video, just last minute. And the whole process was, all these ecology had been created. So from barren land, all this has been planted. So from nature to man-made, that was the idea, because this person whom this memorial is dedicated is his life story has been such. And it's also from a pharmacy founder. So all these species are also resources generated. They are the ones from where the medicines are made. So they have herbal value, spiritual value. So again, the choice of vegetation, etc., befit the kind of purpose of the memorial. And this water is also from the factory, so it's been recycled from the pharmacy production. What comes out, this is all open auditorium or amphitheater, and that center is where he has been cremated. So it's a memory where again space creation through natural material. So the point is, glamour and beauty both catch our attention, but glamour, like fashion, is applique and changes now and then, as against beauty is integral and timeless. And as a space designer, our endeavor is to look at what is timeless. And we think that with technology, things have changed, but as human species, our behavior or our way of life has not changed. You can see 100 years apart, we are just the same. And India, where there is an accumulated wisdom of so many thousands or millennia, why do we not look at that and yet apply it in a present terms? So that were some of the ideas and demonstration. We had our own WhatsApp, CCTV, and surfing. So my final statement is that we can empower through design. The goal to be improve the quality of life. But in context of India, I would say, rather than giving Gandhian currency the value, we must make Gandhian value itself the currency. And with the accumulated wisdom, the mantra, the formula should be inspire from yesterday and aspire for tomorrow. Thank you and welcome to Traverse in the immensity of time and space and notion and reality of this place called India. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my viewpoints. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yatin. So there's one question for you in the chat box. What will be the strength of roof by using of plastic bottles in between those rebars and water resist issue?
No, plastic bottle, PET. See, point is that we don't know what kind of plastic do we get. So we have not used it as an external material where it might be subject to UV radiation. And as we know, that petroleum product would break and become brittle and yellow. But inside, there is no problem. As I say, for 18 years, this had been working. And in fact, it was most easy. You're just simply replacing the clay brick with the plastic bottle. So there's been no change in terms of its even technological know-how or being trained in that. It is exactly the way that the mason is used to doing it in brick is how he does it. And most important advantage, as I said, apart from it becoming a wall with the cheapest material and yet very attractive, it was also that filling up the bottle with hand pressure, the widows got some employment. So that was a social advantage for them. And also, otherwise, the plastic either is thrown, and we know it is an inert material and nothing will kind of decompose that for immediate future. But also, even if it is melted, as I said, that it would release the toxic gases, which is not good for the environment. And after, one bottle, you'll get that size kind of a paste, which you can again melt and put it into something. So that was all energy intensive process with pollutant coming out. So this was a direct application. And here the form of engineered form, 1 liter water also you can hold without crumpling or crushing the bottle. So it was also important to understand as a designer to know the property of the form also. If you would have only used the plastic by opening it, it would have been very weak. So the bottle with some inert material and with the cylindrical form and the lid on top, it could take the load. And it was cheaper, non-polluting, economy giving, and I would say aesthetic solution, and of course functioning for the purpose. It was not a load bearing, it was a partition wall.
I
Hope that
see.
answers.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that answers the participants' question. So thank you, Mr. Yatin, for the insightful presentation.
Thanks.
So now it's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker today, Ms. Nagawati Surya, or known as Ms. Hana, the founding creative director of Threadapeutic, a studio focused on crafting unique textile pieces from post-fashion production materials. Over the past 9 years, Ms. Hana and her team of artisans have improvised and refined techniques familiar to fashion designers, creating handcrafted works that brings a thoughtful, resourceful approach to design. Her work reflects a commitment to utilizing existing materials in new artful ways. Her topic today will focus on building a textile art studio with fabric waste. Ms. Hannah, over to you.
Hey, thank you, APSDA, for having me to talk about our work. Let me share the screen. Okay. Building a textile art studio with scraps. So, yeah, I'm Hana. I have a team of 7 of us running a textile studio from a home. And our base materials are fabric scraps from the fashion industry. So we are a material-led textile art studio based in Jakarta. Material-led meaning so we have to respond to the material that we received from the post-fashion waste, to learn about the materials before we design something for interior or for fashion, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a very responsive kind of work. We have to really study the materials and know them very well, what to apply them for. So this is a picture is actually the the members of our team that comes from different background. We have a seamster, someone who's trained as a seamster, and the rest are just random people who's looking for something new to do, including me, who doesn't know anything to start with, but we learn a lot over the years through trial and error. And this piece, let me, because it's we are presenting this picture right now, is actually a piece which is about, I think, 8 meters times 60 cm. That is a textile made of a pair of textile, but this size for a ceiling decoration for a showroom in Germany. Okay, well, I started Threadapeutic way back in 2015. I never planned to set up a textile art studio, but since what I have and then what I received back then in my community is a lot of fabric waste, like the one you saw in the image, and they come mostly from fashion designers who donate their fabrics, government factories who have their a lot of fabric offcuts that they are willing to give away. And how I got to make a special kind of textile is actually it was a mistake that I did by underselling my cousin's a tapestry, which is made of a certain kind of a fabric manipulation technique, which I then get to learn this technique, which is very common in fashion in the fashion world. It's called one type of a fabric manipulation technique. It's called faux chenille. Faux chenille is more about the texture, is rather than the refining texture of the fabric, rather than about the fabric itself, rather than the technique itself. Okay, I'm trying to make this casual as possible, so I won't be very nervous. Pardon me if I'm kind of like jumping here and there. I see. Okay. So my mission, I don't really have a mission actually, is it's more to find joy in transforming the local materials that has been overlooked, that has been thrown away, and through developing not just the materials but the people that are working with me as a team into meaningful and refined tapestries that you see. One of them right here. So why am I using a lot of post-industrial fabric waste? For once, because it's readily available in my community, rather than have them sent to landfills. Might as well use them as similar to something like a paint to create something beautiful, like a tapestries or textiles. So the different variation of colors, shape, and texture of the fabric makes perfect for creating one-of-a-kind works, like the one that see. So this piece that this image is came from the process of making a tapestry that was displayed for Maison Objet back in 2019. It was a 3x2 meter tapestry that was requested by the curator that has to be something bright and attractive in order to attract visitors to our Indonesian pavilion back then. Our tools are very simple, which is mostly just basic industrial sewing machines, scissors for cutting, plastic brush for brushing, and some metal brush as well. and a dedicated space, spacious space for sorting and storing our materials, also for layering our textiles. So let me see whether, okay. So the technique itself is very simple. It's by layer. When we make a textile, for instance, it'll be we have to gather all the colors that comes in that was planted in a palette. So we have a palette and with several colors that's designed for specific purpose. For instance, a tapestry. So we will pick the colors and then sort out the type of fabric as well. And then we layer them, and then by layering, as in it comes from maybe like 4 layers up to 10 layers for tapestries. So by sewing them together, and then we cut in between the seams and brush them by using metal brush, and then it has to be brushed until it's very refined. So one of the instances that what I've told you just now, that most of the fabric actually comes from factories, garment factories, even bridal ateliers, and then party gown makers, and the leftover from interior fabric stores. All this, including used clothing from loved ones. For instance, this one is actually, and the one on the left is an Indian sari, which is it was worn by my son-in-law's grandmother. So when she passed away, this sari, which is quite threadbare, was passed to me. So I thought so I kept it about like 1 year before finally composite, making it with the Indonesian silk textile, which is also comes in the form of offcuts. So by marrying Indian silk saris and batik silk offcuts, it becomes something like a very dimensional kind of textured textile. And this one, I think we won the last year's Design Anthology Award for this piece. As you see, when we have a lot of fabric coming in, and different textures, we have fabric. The most common textile fabrics that we receive are poly and polyester cotton, but they're also like chiffon, bridal veil, lace, brocades, denims, linens, all sorts, and including jerseys. So basically, we would have to sort them by colors like this. Though there's too many actually that this is only partially that you see that it's being properly organized, but we actually have a lot of unsorted sacks of cloth fabrics in our storeroom. So this is the more organized ones. Okay, for the fabrics, they are divided into like the non-stretchy fabrics, which is the polyester cotton, which is very common in the daily wear that can be found in our daily wear, like the shirts that most men wear. And these are usually made into wall panels. For instance, this one, they're non-stretchy, but for this piece in particular, it is one of the hardest piece that we have to make. It was it's a scenery that we have to compose, but divided into modular forms, and then it has and the pattern has to flow. And this in particular piece is one that is made for Lexus Immersion in Jakarta. It's a lounge. Yeah, and this we work with Budi Lim Architect Studio for this piece. And there are also the translucent fabric, which is lace and brocade, and these are the type that comes from the bridal and what do you call that, evening gown coutures ateliers. Yeah, it's a very tricky to, as you know, that lace and brocade and generally very fragile fabric. So we have to come up with a certain kind of technique that bind them together, but still retain its beauty, its translucency, and as you see here. So it can be quite elastic as well, as because this image doesn't really says everything about it, but it can be stretched as a room divider that we are starting to develop. Also, something like can be performed like a blind, and so we are still finding method how to use our textile, and we've been doing a lot of R&D to find ways of making them. So this is, and then there are also the soft linens that I mentioned before. These are the kind of fabric that we use for something that we will wear, touch often. Like for instance, this one is for a sleeve for a stool that we has recently developed, and this is was showcased in Bintaro Design District as a user testing platform. So we collaborate with Studio Hendro Hadinata Studio to form to have a product that is to give form to our textile. So we come up with the concept of a half made, which is the sleeve is already fully made, but the texture is half made. So what we wanted to test is for the user to be able to participate in the craftsmanship of this sleeve, of this textile, by brushing them themselves. So taking part in the making process, we are hopeful that the end user itself will being participating in the brushing will gradually learn to appreciate the product more, and less likely to discard it when we're tired of the product. So yeah, it's something new. It's a new concept where we even the sleeve itself, even though it's a half made, we can just the end user can just leave it as it is, or they can slowly brush it over the maybe a duration of 1 month. It can be 1 year. It's up to them. It's the personal touch of brushing that will build the sense of connection with the product. So this is the technique that we use. It's called one of the fabric manipulation, which is called slash quilting, or can be called faux chenille, as recognized by the texture. And this is the technique that we have developed for the past 9 years to have it to refine it to the present condition that we able to do. The more we make, the more we learn. So everything, let me explain about this technique. It's most fashion designers know about these very standard techniques. They usually use like 2 or 3 layers to get the texture by simple brushing. But in our studio, we are able to use a lot of offcuts and a different kind of texture by layering them and form our own unique color composition, gradation of colors, and refined textures. So this is our team of 7 people that I mentioned earlier. They don't have a formal training in design or art, including me. But recently, my daughter have joined me for since probably 1.5 years ago. So she comes from industrial background, and from her we have learned a lot about like to carefully, thoughtfully design our textile to be more meaningful, and just not what do you call it? Not just making for the sake of making, but really meaningful artwork. Okay, what's next? Whether we are doing. So from the start, I'm not the kind of person that has any plan to what I do, but because of the materials that are always ready, always there for me to work on, and I would like to give them my best and the best for my team to always find ways to what do you call that? To find new techniques to process them and find the meaningful usage for them. So maybe next year we are working with the disabled community in Singapore. I think it's called Enabling Village, and we were asked to partner with a design studio to help build a new product for them. So it's not about pity or anything that make people to buy because they pity the person who makes them because they're handicapped or they are disabled, but really to come up with products that are meaningful and that's competitive enough with the general product in the market. So that's what I do. Yeah, I may forget a lot of things when I'm sharing spontaneously like this. I hope you can ask me questions, so it will help me to answer what you like to know. Thank you. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Miss Hannah. So right now, my colleague will be sharing a video by Miss Hannah on her work. Just a moment.
So far we actually have
Untuk membuat sebuah tapestry, yang paling basic itu ada image satu. Seperti foto dari pemandangan. Ini saya ambil contoh hutan ya, tapestry hutan. Nah, itu berasal dari satu foto yang diambil dari kita punya intern, graphic intern. Nah, itu saya tanya dia, boleh nggak ini menjadi inspirasi kita? Jadi itu satu foto hutan. Warnanya, color scheme itu sangat natural. Warna dari kain yang kita sortir itu berdasarkan warna yang ada di image itu. Nah, itu kita susun, jadi nggak semua layer yang kita buat itu sama warnanya. Seperti melukis, jadi warna itu kita pilih dan disusun, jelujur, jahit, gunting, dan sikat. Menjadikan sebuah tapestry hutan.
Let me know if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anna, for that wonderful discussion. In the chat, they're saying that both presentations are full of heart, innovative and sustainable ideas, and really very helpful for the environment. They're very proud of the ideas. And of course, a lot of comments on, the presentation being showcasing beautiful works. For those who are participating, there's also a question if you only use dry waste cloth, and how about wet waste textile?
Oh, they are when I say they are waste cloth, it's not clothes, mostly wasted fabric, leftover fabric. So when garment factories, when they make they cut patterns for certain model of fashion wears, there'll be like the offcuts. Those are actually new fabric that are leftovers. Those are the majority of the kind of fabric that we used. But we do also receive some old clothes from people to do commission work. which I think I forgot to show. We forgot to show one piece that is actually tapestry based on a photograph that was taken by an artist in Jakarta. And she wanted that it's a picture, it's an image of a mountain from North India. I can't remember, Ladakh, I think that's the name of the place. The mountain was there. So she has this beautiful image of that mountain, and it's in black and white. And she wanted to use clothing that are collected from her friends and families. So it turned out to be pretty meaningful because when we do the layering, you can see pieces of fabrics that people, her family could recognize that it once belonged to them. But eventually, it was showcased in E.A.R.T.H in a half-made form, which is half still in a layering format, and the other is the finish, which is fully brushed. So you can see the contrast.
Right. Thank you very much for answering the question, Ms. Hannah. And thank you for the inspiring and thought-provoking presentations. I would like to thank both our speakers, Ms. Hannah and of course, Architect Yatin, for their wonderful presentations and for sharing their valuable insights with us today. Now, what I want to do is to open the floor for questions. And I'd like to invite everyone because this is a great opportunity to connect with our speakers and gain even deeper insights into their expertise. So if you'd like to ask something, feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and I'll read them. Or I can also open the floor for anyone who would like to voice out their questions. So in the chat, we have someone asking both speakers, how do you manage the consistent supply of the materials? Which is a very important question on sustainability. Anyone want to answer? Maybe Ms. Hannah or Architect Yatin?
Okay, from my side, I would say, see, the point is that in order, like just to give an example, if we were to use the plastic bottle for a wall, idea is not to make more plastic bottle, create more waste, and then use it for this. It's other way around, that if we have a waste which is of a volume, how can we use it for this and reduce its pollution value or any other detrimental value? So for example, ideal situation will be that where this should stop even being available. That means that there is zero waste coming out even into the open forum. So if everybody recycles within their own circuit, there's nothing thrown and therefore it's not a public waste. So it is other way around, that as much waste that we have, if we are able to apply it for a secondary use, for a better effective kind of solution, that is the whole thing. It is not that this should be the raw material to do, because which is once again coming out of a wasteful process. So it's more about that if you're able to get out of all the waste, perfect. So, and again, it's contextually significant. For example, just to give in an Indian context, we found the way of using the car tires. They used to, with a simple hand tool, take a kind of Mobius sort of a strip and make 3 times the diameter length for a conveyor belt, which was a very effective use of a tire because it is wire reinforced. Now, we don't want to just say that, okay, we want to make it for building and therefore wall should be out of thousands of tires with a lot of mud put in it. That would not be appropriate. So then you would run out of supply. How many tires can you get for how many houses at a time? So, but as against tire being used as a conveyor belt was a very beautiful and very sensitive kind of a use of that resource. So point is more about what you have, contextually what is relevant, and therefore applying it such that there are 3 advantages of reduction of pollution, of maybe generating some employment by value-added processes with little skill, as well as what comes out is better in aesthetic as well as in strength term, and of course within the affordable range to be a good substitute. So that's been the kind of context how we approach it.
Clara, could you repeat the question again? I just want to answer correctly.
Okay. But thank you very much, Architect Yatin. I guess it I like what you said on contextually significant and relevant. We're truly making it circular. Ms. Hannah, the question was, how do you manage the consistent supply of the materials pertaining to sustainability and circularity?
Consistent supply. Right now, we don't. We don't have any problem of lacking of supply in fabric waste, in the form of like leftovers and the discarded ones. Because the technique that I'm using is a very high craftsmanship, and it takes a very long time to make. So but in the volume wise, in the fabric waste, there's no problem. But in the color, the volume of colors that we need for certain panel, like big interior panel projects, it create a problem because there's no a big amount of volume for certain colors. Do you understand that? If for instance, we need a lot of purple colors, it has never been consistent, the same colors that we will receive last month and this month. So we have to, for that kind of project, a special project, we have to find like a leftover colors that are similar from which is new and is still in a roll, in a roll from the leftover from the garment factories, garment productions. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hannah. Okay. I think so. What you're answering is really contextualizing it with your own, application of these sustainable products. So it's good to provide that insight on what that looks like in terms of supply.
Especially
right. Another question, especially, yes, it's true.
It's true.
Another question by Joel. Will these wonderful products be available to be purchased globally? Directed to you, Miss Hannah.
Oh, right now
you have fans.
Thank you. We have catalog. So if you want to see our detailed work, it's actually in our website, and you can download the catalog. So the catalog you'll see our past works and as well the available ones. But most of the time, we actually do commission work for architects and interior designers. So we want to work with interior designers, not just for them to give us the certain designs that they already have in mind, but more to help us solve the problem of work with the other colors that we couldn't work with. Yeah, we welcome that kind of input from designers. So it's back to the topic that I mentioned earlier, that we are responding to the materials instead of like coming up with the design first and then look at the materials or source the materials.
You've been muted.
You're muted.
Oh, thank you for letting me know. I guess because they're such fans of how beautiful the products are, they want to buy them.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, the question is how many of your works can accommodate unused fabrics, and what obstacles do you also face during your work, Ms. Hannah?
You mean how much waste fabric I can use in one work, for instance, like one table piece? Generally, it's more than 90% leftover fabrics. Yes, they're made of leftover fabrics. Unless even the backing, the backing of a tapestry, it can be a piece of a bed sheet from a hospital. But then we would cover. That's a foundation of how we layer the fabric. They would usually have a bottom base fabric, and we layer the other colors on top. That base fabric will be holding all the offcuts together after we brush them. So the back of it, we will usually cover using interior fabric color swatches that we will patch together by color selections.
Thank you for answering that, Ms. Hannah. Now, there's another question here directed to Architect Yatin. How can we make people understand the use of used material or reusing and recycling? Because people are more into new materials in the market.
Okay, I'll take both these questions. There's a previous question also about that developing countries are facing this. Is it only for marginalized community or more and more could be used? So both questions I'll take together. First of all, what is the client's bottom line? They want aesthetics, they want cost not overrun, and they want the performance. So therefore, any product that we do, if that is the benchmark that we keep, that it has to perform, it has to be beautiful or aesthetically pleasing, and it should be within the cost range that you're looking at. So all those solutions are from the beginning designed to meet those criteria. And when you meet those criteria, then clients have no problem. Yes, there is a mindset problem, but then with demonstration, if you're able to prove, for example, that structure with recycled waste, and the client said, please don't make us guinea pig. So what we did was that we actually had test results for all kinds of things, from organic matter coming from waste to its strength, and also made small props for demonstration. And once they see that, and then that particular kind of a structure, what I showed was a kind of collective image over 5 extensions. So we started with one basic kind of area, and then the sort of campus expanded, and we used the next palette of waste material. Then it expanded, and we used yet another next palette of waste material. And now clients are very proud because a lot of people come to study that, visit that. Schools have taken it as case studies. So, of course, it needs a little demonstration to change that mindset. But before that, as I said, there was a 3-year research that went in to arrive at some of these. So I think you also have to have a lot of understanding of what those raw material is and its right application. So as I was saying previously, that plastic bottle, plastic being the petrol-based material, we don't know how it would behave in sun, because each plastic would have come from different place and different type. So better use it for interiors. As against that glass bottle is very good for the west side, because sun is low and you can diffuse the light with the glow, and it would also look nice. And we have also used this, as I said, in some rich person's farmhouses or so. So it is not that it is only for the poor, but it was also, if it is beautiful, then even other, afterwards, some other architects also used it in some other projects that they used, likewise. And talking about this, some of these products, when you say that can it be used in urban areas or for larger development, actually, couple of things that we brought out. Of course, we were not the manufacturer, so we only used for sample, and of course with its test result. But one of which was this China mosaic laden tile. And that we had many inquiries from the commercial developer, because it was cheaper than the cheapest tile available for the rooftop, and yet more performing in terms of heat insulation, because of the China mosaic being white, glossy, and clay. So it was more performing against heat. It was better looking. It was stronger because the clay layer on top would mean more wear and tear it can afford. And it was cheaper after all these three advantages than the cheapest material you can use on the rooftop. So the point is that when you use these bottom lines, then these are very applicable for number of, independent of the discriminating the poor or the new or urban or rural or the slum versus the villas. And last point, that in fact nowadays there are more high rises coming up, or basically structure with column and beam. So the walls are not supposed to take the load. And therefore, rather than having a flimsy kind of a gypsum board partition, if you use any of these, they are not supposed to be load bearing and still may get you a nice sort of alternative to make a partition. So I think it has to perform and perform in all these three criteria of aesthetic, of cost, and its own functionality and stability. So once you manage that, applications are plenty. But again, contextually right, where what resource is there as a waste and still what you put in. And final statistics, as I was saying about the supply, 3,200 metric ton of the waste is every day produced in the city. So I would wish that it becomes out of supply, so there is no waste in the city. Thank you.
You made really good points, Architect Yatin. Thank you very much. My takeaway there is you have to build awareness first of your thing in order for adoption to happen, whether it's in urban cities or rural. So that's a really good point. One thing that you also mentioned is about the sourcing. You have to do research really on the material and the potential applications. That could be the priority first, and that's very much appreciated. And lastly, you highlighted also the question being asked here about sustainable development, how it's going to contribute to that impact. So I think you covered that question well. So I'm going to move to our last two questions for both our speakers. So one is about, again, sourcing. And this I feel is happening a lot because initially when you start a project, these materials are typically free because they're waste. But once they see that there's a demand for it, they would start charging for them. So the question is, have you had to purchase any of the materials or are they always free?
If I answer myself, see some material, if you go as an outsider to this place, they would charge. But otherwise, in their own system, they are free. So, for example, when we created this all-tin container thing, they were available, but they were not effectively used. And we, for demonstration, showed that how can you do it. But when the people in the same settlement, one of the poorest group, adopted that for their own houses, they got them from the sort of waste that they otherwise would have picked up. So all the waste was such that people on their own can source, and for them it would be either free or even if it is not free within the cost range. Otherwise, because at least in India, even in a slum, they have to buy things from the second-hand market. And as I said, out of that 3-year research, one research we have done is that at what price, what kind of a building component they get from what market. And our benchmark was to come lower than that and better than that, price wise lower and performance and aesthetic wise better. So when you do that, then that sort of balances out that particular part. And once again, anything, if it is in demand, good, people would not throw. And that is the whole idea, that it should not become a waste and pollutant. So if people keep it to themselves, even better.
That's true. Thank you, Architect Yatin. Miss Hannah,
Yeah.
before we lead to our last question.
In my case, because we work directly with the source that making the waste, like the garment factories, the fashion studios. So they rather they sell it to some second and what you can a second person that will resell again. They want to know more like they like to know where their waste go to and what is being made into. So while working directly with the factories and the fashion studios, they know that we are responsibly recrafting their offcuts. So in a way, right now we still have not encountered any lack of materials or source of fabric. Yeah, I think if we were I'm a bit reluctant to go to the second person to purchase something that's supposed to be thrown away. So I would rather work and be in partnership with garment factories directly.
One small addition, if I am permitted to make, see, the point is plastic in a raw form as a just collected waste, people get 5 rupees per kilo. But the same plastic, if it is braided and become a rope, they get 5 rupees for every foot. So the point is that value addition even gives better yield to their own use as well as, and like Ms. Hannah was saying, that if the same lady who is working hard to collect the waste and then the middlemen take a lot of profit, if they start doing this themselves or with the help of NGO, their return would be much higher, and that value added product is far more utility based than the regular raw plastic. So nothing is free. But at the same time, with that value addition, its advantages and its value is much higher.
I absolutely agree. Thank you for pointing that out. If I may share the work that we do at the Science Center, developing new materials from agri waste, like waste from pineapple leaves turn into a variety of materials, it's important that you involve material converters, not just suppliers, because they build the ecosystem to make the entire, initiative to become circular more sustainable in terms of structure. So
Right.
thank you for pointing that out. For the last question, and this is the reason I especially to close the Q&A session. The question is, are you happy with the work that you're doing right now?
I'll
Can
let
I
Ms.
answer
Hannah say
that?
so. Yeah, please.
Yeah. I'm
Or
not.
to frame it, maybe, are you satisfied?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Are you satisfied with your current work?
Satisfied. I think there's always room for improvement. And I've always am the one who are trying to find fault in the work that I do because I want to learn more. Is there any other way that we can improve the textile, the textures, or the usage of the textiles? And that's why we would like to work with product designers to come up with new concepts.
I would say the answer is of twofold. One is, like Ms. Hannah was saying, it's fulfilling in the sense that through your intervention, you are able to change the quality of life. If I may say that, insert from the roof and how it changed not only energy-wise, the saving, economy-wise, but also the quality of life. And as many people adapted, so the same slum house became a very livable house, healthy, less gloomy, and likewise. So that gives a lot of, these projects were never with payment. There was no fee. So it was pro bono, but there your return and satisfaction, which keeps you going, is the way that you are able to help people's change of life. And the kind of certification of that is that if people on their own multiply that, or some other architects or other students, adopt that, then it has succeeded, that it has been, of a worthy thing for replication. So, for example, that settlement, we did not end at only the same replication when there was a growth. So that is the other part, what she was again saying, that you always learn and you always want to put yourself in that challenge. So, in fact, every stage of addition or growth, we changed the material, or we added a material palette. So we started with the municipal waste, then we came up with digital waste, then we came up with the building material waste, which come from some other broken site. And then we even started with the second-hand material from the market and how do you better that, etc. So every stage you were able to put yourself an additional challenge that becomes your creative endeavor. And that, when there's no money, then it's what your freedom that you want to explore, to learn as well as do something more and better. So every stage you could improve. So that way it is never an ending process to say that I've reached. Moment you say you've reached the pinnacle, then there's a fall to go down after. So you always aspire for more, but at the same time, when I think you see it helping the people and the context, then I think it's the satisfaction. It's like doctor, if he sees his patient cured, then that's his joy.
Thank you very much, Architect Yatin and Ms. Hannah. Those are very well answered questions. Really, impact is what we're going for, and the contribution that we do basically to sustainability of our one and only planet, right? So I'd like to remind everyone that if you have additional questions, you may email them to secretariat@apsda.org. So if that comes up, if your question comes up later, you can shoot them an email and they will share it with both our speakers. Now, I want to conclude the session and thank you to everyone who participated in the question and answer portion. And a heartfelt thanks to Architect Yatin and Ms. Hannah for their thoughtful responses and for sharing such valuable insights.
Thank you
Now,
so
as
much.
we come to the close of today's session, I'd like to pass back to our MC, Min Yuk, to wrap up this engaging and informative webinar.
Thank you, Miss Carla, and big thanks to our speakers, Architect Yatin and Miss Hannah, for sharing their valuable insights. It was an informative and engaging session, and I do hope everyone here has picked up some great ideas and inspiration to take back with them. So before we move on to the photo session, I'd just like to kindly remind for all our participants to stay till the end of the webinar, as we'll be sharing the link to get your certificate of participations as well as some updates of APSDA. Right, so now I'll like to invite the president of APSDA, Professor Kiat Ong, and also the chairman and representative of Professional Development Department of APSDA, Mr. Rohadi, and also Mr. Luffy, and our speaker, Architect Yatin and Ms. Hannah, as well as our moderator, Ms. Carla, to turn on your camera for the photo session. Hey, Miss Carla. Everyone's looking great here. Hey. Okay, we'll take one first. Okay, get ready, guys. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, we'll take one first. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Oh, Miss Carla is coming in. Okay, great. Okay, 1, 2, 3, ready? Smile. Okay, just one more. Okay. Okay, you are free to do any freestyle. Okay. Okay, ready?
Hello.
1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, everyone. Let me save the photo. Hey. Now, I'll also like to take a moment to share with you about APSDA's ongoing and also upcoming events, which is the Asia Pacific Interior Designers Accreditation Program, as well as the APSDA Awards 2025. So the Asia Pacific Interior Designers Accreditation Program, also known as APRDAP, it's an initiative by APSDA to recognize the professional interior designers in the Asia Pacific region, and it is the first and only accreditation program for professional interior designers in the Asia Pacific region. The APRDAP is open to two groups. Group A for APSDA member economies with a common assessment scheme, and Group B for APSDA member economies without a common assessment scheme. So if you're interested in joining, you may scan the QR code on the left for the APRDAP guidebook or on the right to apply now. Next, I would also like to take the opportunity to welcome all our participants to join the APSDA Awards 2025. It's a platform to showcase exceptional design achievements and also be recognized across the Asia Pacific. And for your information, the awards include 4 main categories, which are Project of the Year, Personality of the Year, Interior Product of the Year, and Best Project of the Country or Territory. The entry submissions will open in January 2025, and you may scan the QR code on the screen to submit your interest and receive updates on the awards. And before we wrap up, the link for the certificate of participation has been shared in the chat box, and a kind reminder that this link will only remain open for 1 week, which is until 3rd of December, next Tuesday. And you may also follow our social media for more updates: Facebook, APSDA, Asia Pacific Space Designers Association, or Instagram at APSDA_Asia Pacific, and our LinkedIn, Asia Pacific Space Designers Association, APSDA. So if you are interested in any of our events or activities, you may follow our social media for more updates. Yeah. And on behalf of APSDA, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. If you're we hope to see you again in our future events. Have a great day and see you next time. Bye-bye.
We
Bu
done?
Ana, thank you Bu Ana.
Salam.
Sehat selalu.
Ya.
Hebat.
Oh, thank you. Berkat
Tam-
semua.
Tambah keren, tambah keren.
Are we done here?
Dan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you,
Yeah, thank
Bye-bye. See you
everyone.
you.
all.
See you again next time.
Inyok,
Thank
see
you.
you.